Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Tales of Logistics. This morning, we have co-founders of Postco.ai who are doing something incredible in the logistics and last mile delivery sector of supply chain. And we have Brett Parker and we have Peter Brook. You guys are welcome to this episode.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, so to kick off, when I was preparing for the episode, I stumbled upon a research, and this 2025, according to the research, 68% of people in UK who receive parcels in the past 6 months have experienced delivery failure, lost parcels, misplaced parcels, damaged parcels. Something has led to a disappointment in their last mile delivery. So that brings the number to about 15 million people who, in one time or the other, within that 6 months time frame, has experienced a dissatisfaction with last mile delivery. So my first question I have regarding that research is, from your experience or from your research, is it something that has to do with damaged labels or poorly scanned labels, or what could be responsible for such a situation?
Yeah, labels are a big issue. So from the work that we do, we're working with various different sort of postal businesses and couriers across Europe and UK. And we see things like label damage, misprint, but also how parcels are presented on a conveyor when they hit the sortation sort of process. Images are taken of every single parcel. And if there's any one of those issues present, it will cause what's called an exception. And we know from our work that up to 5% of items will become an exception somewhere in their journey. And obviously that results in millions and millions of parcels. We're recording this in December. And just an example, we know that Royal Mail in the UK will be processing around 10 million parcels a day. So then you're talking about up to 500,000 exceptions that have to be processed. Yeah. So an exception is really where an item can't be automatically processed because of one of the reasons I've given you. At that point, there is some kind of man intervention. So typically images of the parcel that can't be read, the label that can't be read, are shared with an encoder or a video analyst. And what they'll try and do, they'll try and have a look at the parcel, look at what's left of the label if they can read that, and try and resolve the issue by keying some data into the system. If that can't sort of resolve the problem, actually what happens then is the item actually is fetched off the conveyor and manually sorted. And then it involves sort of physical inspection and trying to do a similar kind of thing. And as you can appreciate, all of these sort of interactions, anything out of the automated process just adds delay, it adds some complication.
Yeah.
And particularly at season where we're at the moment, it may be that they don't have enough handlers to be able to do that physical resolution. So in which cases these items are then put in sort of containers, secure containers held. And it may be not until the next shift that there's enough capacity of people to then actually take those items back out of those containers, process them manually. So all of these sort of these issues stack up to the problems that you mentioned at the beginning with sort of lost or sort of delayed parcels.
And there's a lot of impact it has come to have on SMEs, small businesses, because still on that research, it stated that millions of pounds have been lost. And then there's customers who have lost trusts on these SMEs because of the same issue, delayed, damaged, or misplaced parcels. Besides the fact that there is a situation with the label, what else could be contributing to such a situation that even starts to affect SME businesses?
Yeah, absolutely. So on top of the actual label itself, we're also seeing an instance where there's actually missing data. Now, this is an instance whereby the parcel arrives at sortation and the label is in perfect condition. There's no issue with the label, but it passes through sortation and the scanner or OCR reads the label, but actually there's no data in the courier's network. And that can happen as a result of actually the merchant or the e-commerce sort of retailer not sharing the digital data. So perhaps they've got 1,000 orders that they're looking to sort of ship. They've created 1,000 labels. They sent the actual items to the courier with the labels on, but they haven't sent digital data yet. And that is not sort of hugely common, but it's still happening. And as a result, there isn't any digital data. So when the scan is done, there's no proof of payment for the courier, and they don't always know where to route it. So that actually causes an issue. And that's often with older legacy systems, but you'd be surprised how many of those still are present with couriers and having to manage those. You've also got things like capacity constraints, and I touched on that a little bit earlier, particularly at the now. During peak periods in Christmas, couriers are often reliant on temporary staff to bring in,
Yeah.
perhaps don't have the same level of training. Like I said, you can have, over the Christmas period, there's about 11% increase in delivery, but
Hmm.
actually across the whole period. At any point in the day, you might actually have a 40% spike. So, for instance, around Black Friday, it may be that you're processing 40% more parcels than normal. So suddenly you've got to work out and bring to the temporary staff to be able to manage that. And that creates an issue with that, having the right amount of staff to manage those amount of exceptions potentially, but that volume is really difficult. And that also adds to things like delay. Unfortunately, on top of that, it does expose you to an increase from theft. Unfortunately, that's something everyone has to live with, and that can happen. And if you are hiring sort of temporary staff, it does increase your exposure to that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And then another issue, which is ongoing as well, and there's more and more work doing to resolve this, is where actually addressing is incorrect. So the address on the parcel doesn't actually match an address in a database, and it's actually quite hard to find where that item should actually be going to. There's a lot of work around proving that, but that's also an issue. And all these things stack up to cause those delays that we'll be talking about.
Brooke, you're very good when it comes to AI and research and tech. There's a situation we have. Brett has talked about it. I've looked into it, and it's about dissatisfaction, not just from customers, but from businesses themselves. Can AI fix this? Do you think AI can resolve this situation with last mile delivery?
Well, I think at some point it will get more and more competent. But at the start of the AI sort of journey for businesses, now-ish, I suppose, it can fix a few things that are manual or repetitive, or, you can't do very well with throwing people at it. But obviously not everything. And as time goes by, it gets more capable. But at the moment, it's still sort of in its infancy, I think, in most businesses. Most businesses are kind of having a bit of a hard time, or a lot of businesses are having a bit of a hard time trying to identify where an AI or AI technology can help them, can fit into their company, into their businesses. They're hearing loads of stuff about it and how magical it is. But when they try to maybe fix some of their use cases, they're perhaps finding some disappointment. So there's stuff that we're focusing on. It's like, what is AI good at for what we can deliver at this stage? So without people just think, maybe we can get some robots to come in and do everything that everybody's doing at the moment, and we can just use AI for that. We don't really have to tell the robots very much. We just say, go in and do all the stuff that people don't want to do. And they're not that good yet. They're not that smart yet. Robots aren't good. AI is not that good yet. So really, you've got to be very prescribed in what you tell them to do and what you try and focus on at this stage. If you get them working, and they are really good, but they don't fix everything.
So with regards to specifics, we talked about labels not properly placed. If you instruct a robot in the warehouse or your fulfillment center to place labels properly, do you think that the amount of error would reduce?
I think it is mainly machine driven, a lot of that stuff at the moment, but they have hiccups, or the ink goes low, or something, the paper or the books that it's putting it on has some weird edges or something like that, or it's the slight mistiming. Yeah, in theory, I think they could, but they just really leave it to the downstream people to fix for them. But they'll leave it for the postal systems to fix. There's no real incentive to spend a lot of money fixing labels.
True.
Amazon, even though Amazon are pretty good at that kind of stuff.
So that brings me to your complaint, Postcode.ai. There's a lot of problems in the industry. There's a lot of problems in parcel delivery. What exactly is Postcode.ai trying to fix in real
great
context?
Question. So really at the heart of what we don't have an AI platform, but at the heart of our platform is very much about vision. And so we have an ability to identify a parcel with or without a label using an image. So we've built an AI platform which uses various different components that we deploy to do that. And so typically that enables us to offer couriers or postal services label-free solutions. So we've got probably the most innovative label-free solution on the market at the moment that uses just a mobile phone, and you don't print a label on it, and it can pass through end-to-end through a courier network. We can help couriers where a label is damaged. we use what's called holistic processing. So unlike most systems out there that will perhaps look at a barcode, or look at an address, we actually take a holistic view at parcel recognition. So when we're presented with an image of a parcel, we look at every single sort of identifier or marking on the parcel, and we extract and interpret that data. And that allows us to actually process a lot more parcels than most with damaged labels. So you might have a fragment of a postal address, you might have a fragment of a routing number, we might have actually a fragment of a logo from an e-commerce brand. We can pull all this information together, and actually, even with a very, very damaged label, we can actually route that parcel correctly by taking those fragments and washing them against the data held in the courier database. Because we have advanced OCR and our AI behind it, we can also help things like customs declaration forms. These are obviously often in multiple languages. They're not always fully structured. And actually, we can read those, interpret those, and we can put that data into a format that can be ingested really easily by the courier or the authority. And then obviously, we can also help to find parcels as well. So even if a label is completely torn and taken from the box, actually, we have a capacity with our technology. We use what's called digital twin technology. We can actually then, at a later date, potentially, if the courier has found this item, scan the item with a mobile phone, and actually then we can do very similar to the damaged label processing. We can actually pull back the correct information about that parcel, and then we can rectify that issue. So the whole idea is that we've developed a platform with various different solutions that the courier can choose to turn on or off. And that's the key thing. When we've been talking to our partners, and I think we were talking about it at the beginning with what AI can solve, I think one of the problems that's come up against is people are offering lots of separate little solutions to answer certain problems. What we're trying to do is come up with a platform, a vision platform, that offers lots of solutions that you can turn on and off. But really importantly, it's very easy to integrate. So that's one of the other big problems. We know that couriers are reluctant to integrate any old bit of kit, or would find it very difficult to integrate certain kits, bits of technology into their systems. We purposely built our platform with a set of APIs that are very easy to ingest. We work with existing cameras, for instance. There's no special hardware that the courier needs to invest in. We're mobile first as well, so couriers can use their mobiles or their PDAs. So we've kind of done all we can to make it very easy first to use our technology and to integrate our technology, and then very easy to turn on and off the solutions that they might want to select.
Okay, so now because of what you said, I have a question. So if a small business that is involved in last mile delivery, e-commerce, for instance, is listening and he wants to know in practicality, how can you help him or her save money and save time and retain customer trust? So in context, how can your service help a small business? This small business has suffered a lot with wrongly placed labels, damaged labels, wrong addresses, and he hears about you. How can you help me retain money and retain customer loyalty?
So we have, within our label-free solution, we can help with returns, which is a big area for retailers. And retailers are really understanding now that if they get their returns journey, it's actually a benefit. I think, a few years ago, there's a lot of friction introduced to returns because it was obviously just seen as a big issue. I think most progressive retailers are now realizing that they have to provide a good returns journey for their customers. And if they do that, it creates loyalty. And actually, you can turn that customer into a lifelong customer if you get these things right. We have a bit of label-free technology that enables customers to return items without having to print labels, which is obviously very useful. The retailer doesn't have to include a sticky label in the item they send out. So it's a reduction in terms of environmental impact, but it's also a reduction in terms of cost. Because also of the way our technology works, we can help the courier dynamically route items. So what we can do then is that if an item is potentially returned, and we can know it's in good condition, we can actually have that dynamically routed to a customer that's ordered that item. So rather than having to return to a retailer, them doing an inspection and paying multiple times for delivery or returns, actually you can do it dynamically. So there's various different ways that we can support the retailer and the courier to make that sort of returns process much more joined up, much more dynamic, and actually enhance the experience of the customer. Customers are getting items quicker, they're getting them direct, they don't have to wait, and giving those retailers some choice.
So it saves time, it saves money, and it builds about customer trust. Now, the next question that any business will also be interested in: does it work for just about every parcel, small, medium, large parcels, or there are specific kind of parcels that it works for?
Yeah. It's a good question. So the core underlying technology will work with anything. I mean, essentially, because we're image based, we can identify a parcel based purely on its image. That's really the core of what we're doing. Now, because of the space we're playing in, the market we're playing in, typically the parcels that we deal with are sort of smaller e-commerce, small parcels, clothing, small items. And that's really probably the sweet spot for us. But it doesn't stop us from being able to integrate with a warehousing system or a shipping platform that sends like whole pallets around the world. It's not a problem. It makes no difference to us. But typically, it's a smaller retail, it's smaller items that we're processing.
One of the problems, again, I'm still going to re-emphasize that problem, is about addresses. When I worked in Amazon, we had a problem with addresses. Sometimes the customers are no longer living there. Sometimes the addresses have no numbers. You just go there, it's a building without numbers. And return policies are there in businesses, but it also costs money. Yes, it builds customer trust, but it costs money and time. Postcode.ai, how does it fix last mile delivery address problems when it comes to small parcel delivery?
It's a great question. So one of the sort of parts of our technology, if a customer's sending an item or returning an item, they have to take an image of the parcel. At that point, actually, we require an address, and either you've written the address on the parcel or it's an address in the system. And we'll do a lookup at that point against, in the UK, it's called a path file. And that's the key, that's the database that contains all the addresses in the UK that are registered. And what we try and do is at source, from the customer point of view, at source, trying to rectify where that item is going. So if it's not recognized by the path file, we know there's going to be a challenge. So we'll offer the customer some options within that response, some other addresses. And most instances, they've just got a line of address around, they've called it slightly wrong. And actually you can resolve it at that point, which reduces obviously the errors down the line. But it's a going problem. We can even associate things like what 3 words to an item. We can do all sorts of bits and pieces behind the scenes, because essentially we just have we have the record of the item itself is just an image. And then behind that, we can append any data to it. So we can actually put what 3 words behind that address if necessary. It's not an issue to us. It's more about how you would then work with couriers' own systems to make that transparent and work for them.
Okay. So back to Brook. I've got more questions. I think about it as a customer, and I think about it as a small business entity.
Yeah.
Because these are people that would use or want solutions to their problems. And so, first of all, any courier or an SME would think about is the price. Is it expensive to use your services, Brook?
No. It's for the level of sophistication you get compared to other services in the marketplace. We think it's great value, and I think most of our customers think it's great value as well. So our vision is to get a lot of people using this, and we're not going to do that by having the most expensive systems in the marketplace. Yeah. So people, when they're looking at our technology, assess, is it any good? Does it do what it says on the tin? And how much is it against the service I've got at the moment? And if it's more expensive, then it probably doesn't really matter how good it is. I'll just sort of generally stick with what they've got. And that's not our strategy, really. So our strategy is to make the best technology available at the best. That's the route we're pursuing. So flippantly, no, it's not expensive. It's fantastic value, we think.
Yeah. So we're very price conscious. To be fair, our clients tend to be more couriers using our technology. That's kind of where it is. And we've done a lot of analysis and research about the cost savings that we can offer those guys, particularly around things like label damaged and exceptions and resolutions. And we're extremely cost effective compared with it ending up in a courier's hands to manually handle. It could take 2 or 3 minutes to resolve. We resolve that in real time. And so we enable that automation, and we do it at a fraction of the cost.
So back, more questions. What the fuck? Brett just talked about that with one of your major customers are couriers. Now, speaking about
Yeah.
couriers, how is the onboarding and integration like? Is it difficult? Is it complicated? Does it take time? Does it disrupt processes or operations of the business? How is it like in context?
It's like payment in many ways. The more difficulties you put in front of someone to adopt this technology, the less likely they are to adopt it. So with payment, we thought, how can we avoid people not adopting our technology when it comes to payment? And so, I know. Let's make it so it's affordable to them. And that seems to have worked. Yeah, we thought that through, nailed that one. And now the next one is, how do we get people to adopt this? Shall we make it really difficult to integrate and now almost impossible to start using? And we thought that might have been a bad idea.
It is a bad idea.
Yeah. So what we did was we went the other direction entirely from that and made it really easy to integrate. So it's very easy. It's just an API call, or maybe not even that. One of the great things that Brett came up with is this idea of making it as simple as possible for people to reuse most 99.9% of their existing pipeline. And we do a little bit of pre-processing for them and just send back the results of that, which again is very simple integration. So light touch integration, it's maybe an API call just to use our services for doing some image pre-processing. And then we send back a pre-processed image that they can already use as better than the one that their systems produces. So that's the kind of lightest touch integration. And then we get increasingly, should I say, sophisticated after that, where we can integrate into their backend to databases and do matching pre-advice records. We do some sophisticated stuff with pre-advice matching as well. So it just depends, really. Start light touch and then get a little bit more funky and adventurous as you gain confidence in what we can do. So that's, So no, essentially, it's not expensive and it's easy to integrate.
I'm going to ask a question as a courier service provider. So I'm speaking with you, Peter, and I tell you that, okay, I have this situation. I have damaged label situation and wrong address. Right? And then you talked about it. You told me it's affordable. And my next concern is, how are you going to integrate this into my system? Now, you've spoken a lot of tech words, right? Talk to me like a guy who knows nothing. Explanation. How am I going to integrate your services in a way that I don't have to stop service for a whole day? That's one question. Secondly, is there some sort of specialized device that I have to install in my system? Do I have to reconfigure my system in a way that it suits your services? So I'd like to know about that.
No. And we thought about this. We thought, do we want to get people to reconfigure their entire system just to be able to use our technology? And we say, no, we've got to make it as easy as possible for these guys to use it. So essentially what we can do, there's various levels of integration, but probably the simplest level of integration is you send us your images and we'll improve them for you. We'll get rid of the blurriness, we'll get rid of all so it's very easy for your systems to recognize them. So you've already got some systems that can recognize package labels and get information from them. So you've already got a system that does that reads addresses, reads prices, reads import stuff. So you've got systems that already do that. But maybe the images that they get are a little bit difficult for them to read. So why don't we do a bit of processing before your system starts reading them, which is really easy. You just send us an image, we send you an improved image. So we give it a little bit of a wipe down, clean the windows, wipe the hubcaps, send it back to you, and you've got a nice shiny image ready for your system to consume. So we do a bit of hubcap wiping, basically, I guess. And that's the easiest way for you to integrate it. Coming back to a nice clean car, and the kids pop in the back, all happy.
Oh, that works for me. So you see, now I understand better because it makes me more comfortable knowing that I don't have to disrupt my operations.
Yeah.
I don't have, because you render services, but some companies are not comfortable having someone else to come to reconfigure their entire system. For security reasons, most often they're like, I don't want that. So it's cool, right?
Yeah, I was going to say actually on that security point, that's a really, really interesting one. So another sort of concern from the couriers and the postal authorities been working with is actually exactly that point around security and data, right? Everybody knows about it.
Yeah.
So one of the, like, talking as we did before around taking away these sort of objections to maybe taking our technology, we've done it with making things really super easy to integrate, but we've also done it from a security point of view. So when couriers come to us, they actually have the option of being able to have our technology on premises. So rather than it being somewhere out in the cloud or somewhere where perhaps they think there might be a security issue, we can actually put that within their organization, in their facility, and actually it can be controlled locally. And that just avoids this issue and this worry about it being exposed. So those are the sorts of things. So security is a huge thing for us. And again, we've taken away, hopefully, the objection or any sort of friction by giving them the choice of being able to host it and actually have it within their own platform.
Okay.
Yeah. It's one of those things that lots of people are starting to realize that when they run an AI, an LLM, it's running on some data center that's really interested in probably what you're doing as a business. And it's probably one of the most sophisticated information gathering platforms ever made. And if you're sending it loads of confidential information that, is business critical to you, and you're sending this to a potential competitor, companies like OpenAI and Anthropic, the stuff that they're doing is you don't know where their next foundation model is going to be, its competence, its capability. And it could, for a lot of companies, eliminate their competitive advantage. If you're sending crucial, critical information about how your operations work, the information flows, the customers you're using, the data they're sending you send that to a foundational model and you've got no idea what it's going to do with it.
Exactly.
So we can use foundational models, so we can use Anthropic and OpenAI if we want to, but we can also use private models, so open weight models that will run on any hardware. So we can run our technology on any hardware. As Brett said, you can run it entirely inside your own data center, entirely inside your own factory, entirely inside your own processing center. You don't have to send any data that's critical to you externally. And we think that's a massive advantage for a lot of our customers who are starting to realize the consequences of sending this data to companies that are very, very hungry for it and what the results of that can be.
So what's the scope when it comes to territory of your services? Is it just London or England, UK? How far and wide do your services cover?
Yes, I was going to say predominantly our customers at the moment are UK and Europe, but we've got conversations ongoing with out in the US as well. Yeah, it's a truly global product because everyone has a similar kind of issues that need to be resolved.
That brings me to one crucial question, which is infrastructure. Even in Canada, there are times where the internet shuts down, or you're having banking system problems. And with last mile delivery or with parcel delivery, it's fast and it's crucial. And I'm sure you must have done your own research, but what's one challenge that your company has projected that should this challenge occur, we will be ready for it? It could be internet shutdown. It could be regulation policies. What's that one thing that your team has literally planned for? Not currently happening, but just in case it happens, you'll be ready for it.
Well, it's interesting because we are ready for internet shutdown. Our stuff can run without internet. We don't need an internet to run. We can run entirely internally. So this is why we've planned our technology in this way, that it doesn't really need an internet to run. It'll run entirely inside your system.
Good.
And you can continue processing if, connectivity or data center or DNS hosting is entirely disrupted. You can't get to any other website externally. It doesn't matter. For the technology we use, you can continue processing. And I think that's one of the key reasons we built the technology, the architecture in the way we did, is that it's entirely up to your infrastructure if you want it to be, to keep running. We're not dependent on other technology stacks. So outside of your own premises. And I think that's one of the key things. And the privacy that brings you, as we mentioned previously. So the privacy, the data protection, the lack of dependency on external infrastructure is something that our technology brings that is quite rare I think, in the technology space, not to just build yourself on top of the stack that's external. So lots of people use, say, OpenAI, or Grok or something like that.
Yeah.
It's a kind of essential dependency to their AI offering, but we don't do that. But, I mean, we can do that. We can use those models, and they're great models. They're fantastic. Just that they solve, we think, they can bring issues to a solution, a technology solution that is exactly the sort of thing you mentioned at the start of this question, which is a great question, by the way. So the way we've built this stuff is to be resilient to external data systems and technology stacks and attacks on internet-based attacks. Yeah, it's a great question.
Brett, you want to add anything to that?
No, I think Peter summed it up. I mean, we, particularly Peter, but we've both spent a lot of time thinking about the architecture of the product and how we want to deliver that to our couriers and our sort of customers. And what Peter described as key, and just also the scalability as well. That's a big part of it. Scalability, and actually how we make our processing super quick, super scalable, actually also really cost effective as well. That's another underlying sort of area of the architecture we put in play. But ready for what might happen tomorrow is very much what Peter's been looking at. And that idea of actually being able to run this technology away from the internet is key.
Yeah, it's a good point about the scalability. I didn't mention that, but this stuff just scales. So you can start. So the way we built it, we designed it to scale with different components individually. So each individual component of the architecture can scale independently from other components in the architecture and running internally as well without any external dependencies. So that's, as Brett said, it's an important part of our strategy to be able to provide that privacy, redundancy, and scalability that people are looking for.
Earlier, during that conversation, you talked about businesses not knowing exactly what problem AI can help them fix. Now, that brings me back to a contextual question. I have a business, I run a courier service, or I run an e-commerce platform. I have a situation with damaged packages. I have a situation with poorly placed labels. And I come across you. And I do not know what AI can do for me. Now, you work with AI. How can you make me understand what AI can do for me? Because not just telling people that AI or this is what Postco.ai does. How do you communicate to people who do not still know what your services can do? Communicate to them to realize that, yes, I have a problem and I have a solution. And the solution that these guys can help me fix this problem.
I think what we like to do is we're quite consultative, and we like to listen really to what people, when we talk to people, we just like to listen to them and understand what they're asking, what their questions are, what their problems are. And then we'll sort of reframe our answers in a way that is suitable, or in a way that they can understand, or just in a way you talk to someone, trying to say to someone when you're having a drink what you do, what do you do? And you go, we do this. And you don't go deep diving straight into the technical details. You try to use the context that they give you for their problem and try to reframe fits into that. So it's that consultative listening approach that we like to do. We really like to hear problems that our customers have, and then we really like to talk to them in a way that can reassure them that we've heard them. And you can't do that by just kind of leaping off into an entirely set of narrative that's something you understand. It's not a sales process, it's a collaboration process. We're not trying to sell you something. We're trying to understand how we can help you. And that's a difference I think we like to think that we have when we talk to people. We're not trying to sell you something. If we can't help you, then we can't help you. But we think we can. We think we can help you usually, and we can listen and then hopefully describe in a way that you'll understand stuff that we can do for you.
Good. And typically we'll also offer a level of testing as well. So we want to make sure that we can prove our worth and there's an ROI as to what we're offering. So typically with couriers, for example, we'll run a quick test where we'll take images and we'll show them what the output is, show them the power of what we're doing. And it makes it really easy for those guys to understand how we can help. And actually interesting, you were talking about damaged parcels. Again, that's something our technology can handle. So we've actually now got a solution where it can look at the package, can look at integrity, and it can give you a very clear description of potentially what is wrong, what is damaged about the parcel. And that's something we can demo, something we can show sort of like test results about. And that's a really useful piece of technology. And again, it's just one of the solutions that we've got where you can just turn on and off with the platform. You can do the label error stuff. We can do the label free stuff. We can do the decorations process. These are just things you toggle on. And if you want to turn on the ability to look for damaged packages and have all that intelligence around the damaged items that you've got, turn that on and we can offer you that information. And I think that sort of brings me to actually a really interesting point around how our technology works and also what AI can bring generally.
Yeah.
Traditional systems using a barcode scanner or an OCR system, you've kind of got binary outputs, either the item is processed or not processed, and identified or not. With our technology, because we wrap it up with a huge amount of intelligence, you can actually go into the system and you can ask it for simple reporting around the issues that you're concerned about. So if it is damaged items, you can ask how many items were severely damaged, and it will give you a report. How many items were severely damaged and they used plastic materials for wrapping? You can find out all this intelligence just by interrogating the system with just natural language, rather than having to have lots of people busy trying to compile these reports to satisfy. So it's immensely powerful when you put all this stuff together. So I thought it was interesting around the reporting side.
So my final question that I have, this is the last one. People are concerned that the continuous growth of AI will take away their jobs. Do you feel, I mean, I know this is what you do, this is your service, but does it come up as a threat to people's jobs if you introduce Postcode.ai services to the complaints integration services?
I think that the services that we carry out, such as the label recognition, so if your label's broken and you can't read it, and so it goes to a manual processing, a team of people that then have to sort of manually process it. I think for those guys, what we're doing is just making their job a bit easier. Okay. So at the moment, their job is quite complicated. We've seen the way people operate in these environments, the way they interact with the technology that they have. And it's not always as straightforward as it can be for them to do their job. So it leads to kind of like a productivity loss anyway. So they're not, I've seen the way they use these things, having to rekey, 24-digit numbers accurately every minute when there's no need to do that, isn't necessarily something that it is productive for them to do. So what we do is we provide a service that helps them identify lost packages and fix labels without having to do that kind of stuff. They're still involved and they can process more. And it's probably less, I would imagine, less frustrating to do it. Because if you've ever had to every minute type in a 24-digit number, you'll probably realize it's not that much fun, even though it sounds like it. It's not enormously fun to keep doing that. So what we're trying to do is build technology that's much more productive and is helpful in the workspace, not necessarily something that replaces people. I think that generally, inevitably, some of the stuff, the information processing things that AI is really good at, it's great at languages, it's great at recognizing things and repeatedly finding things that aren't easily spotted by people. I think that some of the things that AI do lead to a shift in where people work, a shift in the jobs that they do.
Yeah.
And I think some of the information jobs that are around are potentially up for grabs by new technology. But whether that actually, in the way that we want it to do, whether that actually frees people up to do their job better, I think in a lot of cases it probably will. So we'll play. I think probably a lot of people let AI do the mundane stuff, the stuff that they really don't want to do, the rekeying stuff, the repetitive daily stress stuff that you just don't want to keep doing. And AI doesn't care. It will just do that for you.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of, at least initially, I think a lot of the roles for AI will be in that sort of domain rather than necessarily entirely replacing people. It's great at doing the repetitive stuff. So I think that over time it will become increasingly more sophisticated, and in the next 10, 15 years, there will be a transition from the stuff that people today routinely do, and some of the middle tier jobs as well, potentially, if not replaceable, at least helped immensely by using some of these technologies. So I think it, as a large scale redundancy technology for getting rid of everybody, it's difficult because at some point there's no money to pay for anything. If no one has a job, or loads of people don't have jobs, and there's no money to pay for anything. So there's a new economics probably starting to ferment at the moment. How do we do that? How do we cope with this? Or does technology actually not go there? Does it not go to that extreme? And the companies that want to do wholesale replacement of people, probably not really thinking it through too far about where this goes economically for everybody that needs to buy petrol and food and Netflix and those kinds of things. So it's it might not necessarily be just technological. There's an economic constraint to this as well at some point.
Bringing it directly back to the couriers that we're talking to, and certainly in, I guess, the short to the midterm, none of the couriers really that we've spoken to necessarily want to make redundancies. They would be a redeployment of people. So but through our technology, obviously we're more efficient. So it might mean less exception handlers, but because of the growth of the industry, it just means they can be redeployed elsewhere where they can add value. So that might be more in customer service, talking to customers more, resolving their issues sort of like in person, and moving away for, like Peter said, the mundane, repetitive stuff, which is what AI currently is very, very good at. So we don't anticipate any great change there. It's actually deploying people to places that actually are more, you get more more of their skill set out of them, leaving the mundane stuff for the tech. That's kind of where we see it in short to midterm anyway.
Thank you very much, Brett, and thanks a lot, Brook. Your names, there's BP, PB, there's B, Brett, there's Brook, there's Peter.
I see why you've just gone for one name on yours. Makes it so much easier. What name did I call you? I know. Yeah. So I'll do that next time.
I want to thank you guys a lot. We've talked a lot today. Talked about the problems we have and what research has shown in the UK, about 67% of people suffering from poor services in last mile delivery. That counts about 15 million people. Then we talked about how it affects small businesses, courier services, and customers. Then we talked with Brook on what AI can do, and then shifted it down to what your services do, which is saving costs, building customer loyalty, and rendering faster services. So it's been an interesting discussion with you both, and Brook has also helped us seeing how it can be integrated, practically how it can be integrated with my lot of questions I kept asking. And the scope currently, yes, it's in the UK, but it can be used everywhere, used in Europe as well. And you're planning for the unexpected, the unforeseen occurrences, and you do not need internet services for that. It's affordable, it's easy to integrate, and it doesn't take away jobs. So these are crucial informations that not just businesses, but individuals would like to know. And I'm glad that you both and your team has worked it out together and ensure that it suits these needs. It's a great conversation we've had with you guys, and thank you very much for the time spent with you. And that's how we wrap up our episode for this week, friends and listeners. Looking forward to see you guys next week in a wonderful new episode. Voila.
Thanks, Adish.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, that was great. It's fun. It's enjoyable.